Bună seara!
Bună seara, cine e Radu?
Radu Fulga de la Constanța.
Uite, am avut probleme mari, m-am făcut de râs din nou, incredibil, nu înțeleg ce se întâmplă. E uluitor, e absolut, parcă zeii răutății s-au năpustit peste mine. O să-ți explic, trebuie să-i scriu și lui Andrei și lui... ei au fost, o să-ți explic, e complicat.
Mă rog, eu vă scrisesem că nu știam adevărul.
Bine ai făcut, dar e incredibil, adică încep să nu mă mai suport, pentru că e vina mea, dar nu înțeleg ce se întâmplă. Și am trimis mesaje la multă lume și în afara țării. M-am făcut de râs din nou, pentru că nu înțeleg. A generat 2 meeting-uri nenorocitul ăsta de Zoom și am șters unul când primeați voi mesaj că e another meeting, dar
la șters pe ăsta și de-aia mi-a părut mie că nu mai e valabil ID-ul.
E incredibil, e absolut incredibil. Deci o să fiți 3 persoane, dar măcar, Doamne Dumnezeule mare, mă rog...
Ăsta are niște limite ale lui, mă rog, și nu e compatibil cu toată lumea.
Nu știu dacă limitele sunt ale lui, sunt ale mele. Deci eu când am făcut, mă rog, scheduling-ul ăsta, am ales, bineînțeles, am făcut unul singur, dar a apărut de 2 ori și n-am știut asta. Și când a încercat Andrei și cu Oana să intre, primeau mesajul, probabil că și alții au primit același mesaj, că nu e, că sunt în alt meeting.
Exact, așa am primit și eu. Așa primisem și eu, pentru că probabil se activase și al doilea ăla de care
dar nu știu de unde a apărut acel al doilea, asta nu înțeleg. Da. Și eu am trimis, și pe urmă am șters unul, dar l-am șters exact pe ăla care era bun.
Da, am înțeles, am intuit și eu după.
Dar eu n-am făcut două rezervări, două schedules. Eu nu înțeleg, chiar nu înțeleg ce se întâmplă. Ok, somebody else came and something from a different country, so I have to talk in English now. Sorry, we had some problems, technical problems. I'm not very knowledgeable yet with Zoom, and I probably never will. But that's why we are late, because people tried to come in and they failed because they received an alarming message. They were unable to come in, and I became even more alarmed. Where are you from? Pankai? How do you pronounce your name?
Pankaj. I'm from Bangladesh.
From Bangladesh. Very nice.
Yeah.
I have a good friend in Bangladesh. Maybe you know of him. He's an architect, Emran Hussain.
Yeah. I know.
You know of him?
Yeah. He studied in Harvard.
Yes.
I guess. Yeah. We know him.
Okay.
He's a very renowned architect here, and we all respect his attitude towards architecture. He usually approach any design differently, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are good friends for many years since he was in the United States, anyway, sorry about these problems. These problems with. Did you try to get in? Like almost half an hour ago.
No. I'm just trying to get into it.
Okay, all right.
Will you continue the program? Will you continue this meeting?
Yes, because in fact we are just starting it, but unfortunately I sent many messages outside of the country and within the country, but maybe people tried to get in and they couldn't get in, and we are sorry about this, but we are still 6 people. Okay. I'm prepared. I have things to show. Just if you allow me, I just need quickly to check my other email addresses, because maybe some other people wrote that they couldn't get in. Could you please wait 3 minutes?
Yeah. It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I cannot minimize it. Okay, we'll begin now. Nobody wrote, so you know what I wanted to do today. Do you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, we are
Okay, so
hearing
you hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do today was to talk about Charles Mackintosh, because well, tomorrow it will be his birthday, but tomorrow I will talk about Frank Lloyd Wright, and it will be like a Frank Lloyd Wright festival, because he has so much work to do that you know, I cannot do it in half an hour or an hour. So tomorrow, the whole day, I mean, after 6 p.m. Romania time, it will be dedicated to Wright, Frank Lloyd Wright, and Bruce Goff, who was born in the same day, but who deserves attention, a very interesting architect. But today I wanted to talk about Toyo Ito, because I'm a little late, because I found out that his birthday was on June 1st, and just like Sir Norman Foster. And so I will show a PowerPoint presentation on Toyo Ito. I will show a or two power presentations on Charles Mackintosh. And if we have time, because I don't have the presentation on Norman Foster, it got lost between other hundreds of PowerPoint presentations, and I apologize. I thought of talking about Su Fujimoto and Ishigami, because they are somehow the byproducts, so to speak, of Toyo Ito. So I don't know what to do, to begin with Toyo Ito or to Charles Mackintosh. You decide. You five who were courageous enough to come here. So, do you want me to start with Toyo Ito or Charles Mackintosh?
Maybe which one came first in history?
Okay, okay, that's a legitimate answer. So I'll start with Toyo Ito. Plus, he's interesting because he's contemporary. And not only that he's contemporary, but let's hope you will see it. Do you see the screen?
No. Not yet. Share, please.
Not yet, because I forgot to. Okay, I'll make share screen. Okay, like this and like this. Okay, do you see now Toyo Ito?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll start from the beginning. Slideshow slideshow, come on. All right, you just see his name, right?
Yes, it's good.
Okay, so this is one of the most important architects today. He also received the Pritzker Prize, so you know we are talking here about a so-called star. But the Japanese architecture continues to be interesting, and the new generation is called, I mean, I saw titles like Japan is Rising Again, and is rising again particularly because of people like Toyo Ito, but then the younger ones, Fujimoto and Ishigami, and there are a few others also are important. But we'll start with Toyo Ito. He will be, I think, next year, he will be 80 years old. He doesn't look like an 80 years old man, but he's close to it, actually. These Japanese, they usually look younger. With a little bit of help from hair coloring, will do the job. I saw him lecturing in New York at Columbia University, and I wrote an essay on him, which was very depressed and very depressing, but also his lecture was very depressing. His shirt is not so depressing. I am too inhibited to wear such a shirt, but he's not. Nor is Sir Norman Foster, born on the same day, who sports sometimes a belt, the same pink, like the pink in Toyo Ito's shirt.
Yeah.
The self-styled dissatisfied architect. He was actually born in Seoul, in South Korea. I don't know about this dissatisfaction. Maybe after his wife died, but we wonder, why is he so dissatisfied? I mean, this man builds a lot and builds interestingly, so he has a lot of success. So where does his lack of satisfaction come from? Why is he dissatisfied? This is the question. And I think it's an important question. How come that a successful architect who builds, who is listened to, who lectures, who is adored even, is dissatisfied? Because I want to be an interactive meeting. I am asking you, the other people present tonight or today, why do you think this man would be dissatisfied?
Well, you just said we can think of him as a star architect, right? So when you think of other stars, like in music, a lot of them actually are they don't find happiness, although they are, like you said, adored. So maybe he tries to make himself understood, but for him, the public doesn't really get what is happening inside his mind. So perhaps I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yes. No, you are right, of course. And there are other artists with so-called huge success who are, inwardly speaking. Talking about what was inside them. They were not. They are not very, very happy. And some of them actually say it bluntly. Success, so-called success, it doesn't bring you happiness. Anyway, so in 2013, he received the Pritzker Prize. He finds inspiration in air, wind, and water. Interesting. It's interesting that fire is missing. Actually, the four elements are air, earth, or sky, earth, and water and fire. But he uses this triad, air, wind, and water. It's interesting, the presence of the wind, air, wind, water. But these people in Japan or Korea or Asia in general, and maybe, and I hope also, I think actually in Bangladesh, in countries that are a little bit further away from Europe or the United States, I think they have a more spiritual life. They are closer to the elements. They are closer also to the mythologies of their own culture. So, I mean, you'll never see a Western architect talking about air, wind, and water. No way. This is a man from Asia. This is a man who still looks beyond the limits of the human being or condition. Dwelling for a Tokyo nomad woman. This is a very early project. And actually, he talked about it in that conference that I attended, which I mentioned. He's a builder. He knows how to build. He knows how to put things together in practical terms, in concrete terms. But then again, you wonder why a dwelling for a Tokyo nomad woman, and I'm talking about a single woman. Somehow, in old cultures at least, the woman was the repository of stability, of home, of the hearth. And now when you have a woman who is alone and nomad, not just alone, but also nomadic, you wonder what kind of world we live in. But this is the reality. And this was the reality in 1990s when he made this project. A house for a single woman who is actually nomadic. It's a mundane little house with it's not even, I mean, it's not really a house, but it's a temporary structure for someone who is on the run, I could almost say. Yeah. I remember him saying in the conference that I attended that this woman, comes from work and then prepares for the bar where she goes and she dances and she drinks. And you see even here there are elements of like cosmetics. So it's a kind of life that maybe, yes, is contemporary, but, what is the center of this life? What is it's a life that maybe many people have today, but it's a life that we could talk about. You know, this is the it's like a tent almost. It is a tent. It's interesting. It looks interesting. It's contemporary, but there is also something sad about it because it actually evokes solitude. Sorry about this. Okay, again, restaurant nomad. It seems he is interested in being a nomad. This restaurant is called a nomad, but he is actually not a nomad himself, Toyo, and he has a very modest office. Actually, I was impressed when I saw a video with him. Truly, it's like has a few 2 or 3 students around him. It's not the typical successful office like Zaha Hadid, 450 people, or I'm not even talking about Sir Norman Foster. No, his office is very, very modest, considering the amplitude of his work and the success that followed. Tiny houses, again, for nomads. So he questions the validity of the traditional house today, occupying himself, or at least at that time when he did these projects, for nomads. Modest structures. Well, this is not so modest, but for using the standards of certain countries, but maybe for him it is. Tower of Winds. You probably know this work. Made him famous. I don't know exactly what the utility of this tower is, but the fact that he called it Tower of Winds, again, it reminds me of Le Corbusier's Tower of Shadows. These architects are actually poets in disguise, so to speak. I mean, they understand that life is not just the measurable and function and utility, it's also about something else. So this tower changes under different conditions, atmospheric conditions and light conditions. It's interesting, but I don't know what its so-called real function. Maybe it's a water tower. I'm not sure. It's not a cylinder. In plan is an ellipse. The Japanese are interesting, and actually I feel now tempted to talk about also Fujimoto and Ishigami, because they are, like in the case of Rem Koolhaas. Rem Koolhaas also generated not a plethora, but a number of offsprings, of whom the best known is Ingalls from Big. But in the same way in Japan, Toyo Ito had an influence on younger architects like Fujimoto and Ishigami, and you'll see, at least you'll see a picture with Fujimoto and Toyo Ito. Lots of books, nice. I don't know about the eyeglasses, but architects have a strange, taste in eyeglasses, especially the men. They do have a strange taste. This is, I think, the Pritzker Prize. Yes, he doesn't look like a happy man, but I think his wife already died, and I know he suffered a lot because of it. But although he suffered a lot, he still didn't renounce to these funny eyeglasses. I wonder why. Anyway. Now he smiles, of course, because the Pritzker is the Pritzker. But he could actually cry at any moment from what we see here. The man on the left is actually the Pritzker, the boss, from the Pritzker family that offered this, so-called prestigious award. Actually, the award is half the size of another award that is offered by Notre Dame University. I think it's in Michigan, also in the United States. But it's not so much the amount of money; it's the prestige. And here you see the lucky winners. Even his colleague, in terms of when he was born, Sir Norman Foster, the second from the top, he got it too. Herzog and de Moron, Haza Hadid, Richard Meyer, Zumthor, Venturi, Oscar Niemeyer, Sejima, Tadao Ando, this is the man from Australia whose name I will never recall, Glenn Marquardt, I think, Jean Nouvel, Frank Gehry, I don't know who this one is, James Sterling and I.M. Pei. In the meantime, others, of course, got it. He doesn't give up that shirt. It seems as if, you know, a certain strange being kissed him in that way. Strange shirt. Serpentine Gallery from 2002. I like this building, and I think it was shipped to another place. I like the fact that the Japanese, and he's not the only one, also works with chains, with uncertainty. So the cuts in the prism are not predetermined. There is an aleatory quality to them, and I think this is good. I mean, he problematizes the will of a reason that is too rigid and too Cartesian and so on. And he does this many times, where he takes a prism and then he cuts it, he fragments it, and of course he's not the only one doing this, but he's one of the better ones doing this. So it seems that this visual attraction, this spectacle in a way, is the result of negating the serenity of a prism, which refuses diagonals, which refuses chains, which refuses capriciousness in a way. He's not afraid of capriciousness, and I think that's good. I don't think it was demolished, but it was removed from here because that's what Serpentine Gallery does. Every year they build a new. This is another pavilion, kind of similar, but still different. I like this one too. And again, you see here things that are not to be justified solely through reason, and I think it works, because the branches of a tree also are not, are unexpectedly. I mean, they grow upwards, and there is a certain, configuration, but there are also accidents, and this is what he's trying to achieve in architecture too. And if my metaphor is not too simplistic or downright wrong, I would say that this part somehow approximates the branches of a tree, and the structure becomes almost hidden because of this. I mean, like inside you can figure out how the structure is, but otherwise it's kind of hidden. But again, you have this relativization of the prism that has, I think, a refreshing taste for the eye and maybe for the spatial. Pardon? Somebody said something?
Yes, I want to add something. I think it's important on this building. The Japanese, they have a certain way of working in furniture. It's called kumiko, and it's a technique to make some panels of the furniture see-through, like a sieve. So in that technique, you actually use little pieces of wood glued perpendicularly to the face of the cabinet, of the, I don't know, cupboard or whatever you are making. And actually what's happening here with the wood reminds me of that same thing, of the traditional kumiko furniture technique. And of course, that technique is more symmetrical. So what you said before with the tree still is a valid idea. But I think the choice for this width of structure and the fact that it's wood also goes a little towards the Japanese tradition somehow.
It's possible, yes. It's possible because Japan does have does not forget its past, and even the most innovative architects, they are still immersed in their traditions and in their culture. It's very possible. Thank you. But I like the fact that, again, you know, he's capricious. This the wooden part of the building is it seems to be disorderly, but it goes with the tree behind. I mean, we are afraid of these kind of things because we are very timid generally and very rational, so-called rational. But we eliminate, we banish so-called unreason, and by banishing so-called unreason, we are banishing an important part of ourselves, I think. That's why the deconstructivists had their role, and they still build a lot. Anyway, yeah, it's an interesting pavilion. Look at the structure. He gets rid of the vertical column and the horizontal beam. It's a different kind of structure. And nature does have something like this, of course. It's also the frontier between structure and ornament is less obvious and less present, because here the structure becomes ornament and the ornament becomes structure. And he anticipated, because this is an older building, you know, buildings that are built now somehow in the same spirit, where the frontier between structure and ornament is, if not completely erased, is diluted. This one is a famous building, you probably know it, Sendai Mediatek. With the structure, again, he plays in an interesting way. In Japan, it seems they have very easy regulations, so to speak. That's why they experiment so much and they can build so much, so very different things. It's paradoxical because Japan is described as a country with strong hierarchies, with you know, customs that cannot be easily broken. But it seems the construction regulations are very lax. I mean, look at these columns, which become tubes and you know, tree-like, is like the trunk of a tree is, although they are hollow. But the building wouldn't be the same without them. I mean, the same building probably by most architects would be built with, you know, regular vertical columns, not hollow tunnels, vertical tunnels like he did here. And they're all different. And they're also, you know, sloping to the left, to the right. Actually, these tubes, vertical tubes, are made of the structure. So instead of having one single column, he has a number of columns that create the carcass of one tube. It's an interesting idea. It was copied a few times after he did it, but he was the originator of this. practically he eliminated the very common, exasperatingly common, column. I like the plan too, and this is how Kazuyo Sejima works. This is also how Fujimoto works and Ishigami works. You can see that we are in the electronic age, but you also see somehow the primitive future Su Fujimoto talked about. And it's very interesting linguistic choice, primitive future. Here you can almost see, if there wasn't the square, you would see it's almost an African village. But at the same time, it's like you open a certain electronic machinery and you see the components. So it has this dual look and dual meaning. Indeed, it's a primitive future and is explored not just by Toyo, but also by, as I said, Fujimoto, and in a different way by Ishigami. Indeed, Japan is rising again. The tsunami doesn't stop them. The earthquakes do not stop them. The nuclear cataclysms do not stop them. Why are they so creative? How do you explain it? Please tell me. What makes this country so, unique? Of course, it's not, but no, it has a unique position. And when I'll talk about Su Fujimoto and Ishigami, I'll talk also a little bit about their mythology, because I think it's very important that this country, for the sun, they had a goddess, not a god, Amaterasu. And this is the country that is the furthest east. So when the sun comes up, it is the closest to Japan. So I think Japan does have a form of exceptionalism. I think the people are somehow aware of their being at the same time at the very periphery, but also somehow in a privileged position because the sun rises there. But they are very hardworking, and they are sophisticated. Even Frank Lloyd Wright, about whom I hope I will talk tomorrow, if I don't have again problems with the Zoom, admire them very much.
Even Charles Mackintosh.
Pardon?
Even Charles Mackintosh.
Yes, even Charles Mackintosh, yes. But Wright had even a collection of woodcuts, and you'll see some of them here when I'll talk about Fujimoto. Anyway, interesting architects, interesting people, working very hard, but the results of their work is to be seen. They are magnificent craftsmen. They can build anything, so they can play like this because the craftsmen that they are, they have no problem to build anything with an unbelievable accuracy. If we are talking about ourselves, we would collapse to do something like this. And this is just one tower out of many. This is another building where he plays with the same theme, like the branches of a tree. He's not the only one, but he is one who does it with a certain conviction, so to speak. Of course, it's a nostalgia for nature. We live in an artificial environment, but nature is still there. So we try to approximate that nature in a certain way. And this is one way. Maybe there are other ways. Frank Lloyd Wright honored nature in a different way. Maybe Frank Lloyd Wright was asked, do you believe in God? And Frank Lloyd Wright said, I do, but I spell it nature. Maybe Toyo would have given a similar answer. But this carcass is not just decoration, it's also structure. It supports this, it supports the building, but using a different formal paradigm. Another tower here. You see again that he's playing with these openings. And the word playing is, I think, appropriate. This building is in Barcelona. Public theater. This is interesting too. It's like a black rock, huge, large black rock. So I think this year on the 1st of June, he was 79 on Monday. It makes me think a little bit of the Philharmonic in Berlin by Hans Scharoun, but it's also very different. It's black, it has round windows. In Berlin, there is just one round window, if I'm correct. But there is something about it, and I don't know. You will see a building towards the end of the presentation where he actually, to me, is unbelievable. He almost copied, plagiarized Frank Lloyd Wright in the Johnson Wax building. The similarity is so obvious that I'm sure it's an obvious reference to a famous building, and I wonder why he did it. We'll arrive there. Yes, this is a complex of several buildings on an island. This was a chance also for Tadao Ando to do. These Japanese, I don't know how they can afford, to allocate so much space to these functions that are, not very lucrative in a way. They're just, so many museums and so many serious structures built for, I don't know very well what. Again, you see, he's obviously a kid playing with cubes and spheres and polyeders. And yes, it's important that he's playing. And this is why his work is playful, because he plays. It's not just, it's an imagination that allows itself sufficient freedom through playing. Here, all these buildings are built by him. You see even the model of his tower, I guess. I think one of the buildings at least is for his own work. And he's still dissatisfied. So we are not in such a bad situation. If we are, or if I am dissatisfied, I could always recall that Toyo Ito is dissatisfied. And look, you wonder, what would make one satisfied? If not even this succeeds. In my essay, I talked about how a human being has two bodies. One is the physical body we use to drink water, wake up, perform very primitive actions. The other one is what I call the subconscious body, which is our soul. You see, this is something we do not talk about in our glorious architecture schools. Whenever I've heard the word soul, no. We are technicians, we are divided human beings, broken up. We only talk about, eating and drinking and sleeping and so on, but we forget our metaphysical side or subconscious side. And he doesn't. He talks clearly that there are two halves. The subconscious body, which is our soul, as he calls it, and then the other one. So this architecture today really needs to stimulate and work around both bodies. And I totally agree. Actually, my architecture is still focused on that. I feel it can never be one or the other. True, there needs to be an harmony between the bodies, and how that harmony is reflected in architecture is one of my biggest focuses. So there are two bodies. I don't know very well why he calls the soul a body, but maybe that's not important. Plus, maybe the translation is not good. This is an interesting museum for an interesting theme, mother and child museum. I think it's a legitimate topic for a museum, and it has only artworks dedicated to the mother and the son. Very nice. The architecture is reduced to a minimum in a way, but for a museum, it's okay. This is a solar stadium. This is the dramatic part. Not all parts are so dramatic, but it's interesting. Much more interesting than Kengo Kuma's National Olympics Stadium that was just finished, which is not creative at all, but is much bigger than this one. Here is obvious creativity, I mean, everything is, unique. I'm surprised he builds such buildings, because I saw his office. I don't even remember actually seeing a computer, or strange. Maybe he works 20 hours a day, or maybe he works with other offices in some other parts. This is the red one and the one on the right. They are both by him. And they are interesting. They're sensuous, but they're also prismatic. I mean, the one on the right, there is a balance between l'esprit de géométrie and l'esprit de finesse. The spirit of geometry and the spirit of fineness, or the subtlety, or I don't know how to translate. But the playing kid is present here too. He still dissatisfied. You see, not only that he accepts, but he invites disorder or irregularity. It is integrated, so it's a balance between order and disorder. Not bad. Very nice. Barcelona. That's him. Now this is a more recent work, and he worked for several years. It's a complex work. It's large in scale, and it's you'll see a lot of pictures with it in Taiwan. It's an opera house, but it's also called the National Theatre. It's quite big, as you can see. And these capricious shapes in the elevation are actually reflections of what is going on inside, and in 3 dimensions. It's I don't know how to say, it's a sum of cave-like spaces, very interwoven and very intricate and very, he was probably thinking of that subconscious body when he created these spaces. And again, you don't have, you know, columns, regular columns, vertical and horizontal structural elements. The pictures you see here are during the construction, but you'll see some pictures after it was finished. That's how it is inside. This is a rendering. The building site is impressive too. It moves me, this collective effort to bring to fruition the vision of someone. So, in other words, architecture is not an individualistic, you know, event. As you know, it is a collective effort, and it is shown during the construction. We sometimes forget when we see the building finished, but look at it. Look at the silhouette of one human being. It's a huge building. And again, the plan. You see the freedom of the plan within the prism. But the prism is complex because you'll see the structure, how it is. It really has these holes like you know, a certain cheese, you know, and they actually create the structure of the building. That's how it is in the model. Kids outside enjoy the proximity of the building, or anyway, they enjoy the water, but maybe a certain playfulness is at work here in and outside of the building. I don't know who made this drawing, but it's too bad the resolution is not good, but it kind of goes with an opera, and I like it. It's a section that is playful and maybe infantile a little, but and it's also Baroque in a certain way. This kind of interior can be found in other places these days. You know, as someone said, a doctoral student here, she said, it's the cave revival. Yes, it is the cave revival. But the filtering of the light is not bad, and I think it's impressive just as it is. It doesn't need decorations or you know, hanging paintings on the walls. There are no walls actually. The snail, this one was done in Spain, but it was demolished. It was demolished without ever being truly finished. People began to steal steel. But it's very nice. I'm sad that it was destroyed. The snail. Museum in Mexico to dedicate it to Baroque art. This one is more common in a way. It reminds me of Christian de Portzon Park, but this is a funeral hall in white and not in black. I wouldn't expect a funeral hall to look like this, but that's okay. Now, he obviously uses computers. You cannot build this roof without them.
the opera in Taiwan, and this one kind of reminds me of the House of Yunnan.
Why?
Because of the round shapes and the way that they don't subject themselves to spheres or cylinders, and thinking about it on a different scale, that one was possible to be constructed without a computer, but here we have a totally different scale. So obviously they used a different kind of engineering.
Right.
And this one actually brought me back to the beginning of the presentation: air, wind, and water. It's exactly that.
And the mountain or the hill. Small hills, I guess. Interesting is, you know, proximity, the traditional cemetery, and then Toyo Ito's structure across the pond. This is the Japan Pavilion in 2012 in the Venice Biennial. He wanted to build small houses, small houses with a team of his collaborators, and you'll see some of them. So I like this fact too, that he's concerned with, you know, also offering his, you know, services or talent to people who are not, you know, necessarily rich, or, you know, the thinking about dwelling in a different way, and in a experimental and spontaneous way, he built actually some of this. Again, primitive futures. Home for all. I like this very much. Home for all. And he actually built them, at least some of them. I don't think he made this drawing, but it's not important. I think he built them with volunteers. This young person here, he anticipated the pandemic, I guess. The one on the right, this one is Fujimoto, the rising star of Japanese architecture. One of them. I invited, there is a Romanian architect, she finished the Minku a few years ago, and she works for Fujimoto in Paris. He has an office in Paris too, but I don't think she came. Anyway, this is the Venice Biennial. How come these people so-called find time to do so many things, exhibitions, you know, studies, build an experimental village, build the opera house in Taiwan, build towers in Barcelona. I guess when you have a very creative life, you are active, you have vitality, and still he's depressed or dissatisfied, as he put it. But maybe it's that dissatisfaction that Michelangelo had too. I don't know. Okay, so this is Stephen. This is not Stephen. Called Fujimoto. I don't know who the others are. So I think Fujimoto worked for him for a number of years. So they received the Golden Lion in Venice. That's the way to go. Everything works for the dissatisfied man. He builds, He experiments, he makes Fujimoto smile, and he also gets the Golden Lion. They are playful, you know, because they are free. Although you would say Japan is not a free country because of the many customs and hierarchies, but it seems they are free. A rare high-rise project by an architect who professes not to like skyscrapers, this tower is marked by an abundance of greenery on the facade, as well as a rooftop wind catcher that funnels fresh air through the core of the building, lowering ambient temperatures by 2 degrees. But although he claims he doesn't like skyscrapers, this building is very, I would say, megalomaniac. I don't know all this justification about the wind and so on, but look at it. Wow. What is this? In Singapore. I mean, it's interesting, but it is a little overwhelming. I don't know the function. It seems to me the effort, the constructive effort, is disproportionate compared to the goal or its function. A lot of architecture looks, I don't know, I forgot English too, more beautiful without human beings. It's true, but I have always intended to design architecture to look more beautiful with human presence. Interesting. I know that myself, when I took pictures, my best pictures were always without people. If I photographed a building, I would have liked the people not to be there. And this is the university library in Taipei, and this here, he plagiarized Frank Lloyd Wright in the most obvious and unexplainable way to me. So this is what, but maybe the so-called concept of plagiarizing in Japan is different than in the West. But this is what he did, and this is what Frank Lloyd Wright did. So this is Frank Lloyd Wright and Johnson Wax building in Wisconsin, and this is what he did. I mean, the mushroom column is a trademark almost of Frank Lloyd Wright, and he uses it in almost literal. It's a literal copy. What do you make of this? Because it's hard for me to believe that Ito was not aware of the building by Wright, or that he was not aware that at least some people will know the similarity, which is so striking. I was inclined to think that because the reference is so obvious, that he, in a way, this was the tradition of the new, meaning the work by Wright, he took as being some kind of the public domain, and he, without hiding the reference, he externalized its influence on him in this very literal, obvious way.
Maybe it's like in music, it's the cover version.
What does it mean, the cover version? Sorry, I don't know.
When you have a big hit, I don't know, and a new band remakes that song.
Yeah, but I think here is a difference, because usually what you mentioned is usually those musicians who repeat the song. You know, they are not as famous as the originator, but in this case, Wright and I mean, I wonder what Wright would have said if he would have seen this work. We will never find out, but I really wonder what would, I mean, to me it is unbelievable. Why did he do this? This is Wright, and this is Ito. This is the Johnson Wax building by Wright, except that it's in white, and yes, it's not a grid, a regular grid, but the columns, I mean, even the spacing, you know, between the capitals of the columns. Yes, from above you see some creativity in the sense that some are larger, some are smaller, while in the case of Frank Lloyd Wright, there is a grid and they're all the same. But the mushroom column is there in Wisconsin.
The building behind it is made by Le Corbusier.
No.
Well, see, it's kind of, I mean, in a way, what Ito, we say that he's making here. The other variant is, of course, he stole the idea, but in another way, we can think of a way of fixing this this way of doing a library like a new tradition. You know, it's like Frank Lloyd Wright had a very good idea. Let's do this from now on to as many libraries as we can, and you know, like using a Greek column. Right at the present time, the Frank Lloyd Wright column becomes a new order in architecture, more or less.
No,
I mean,
I don't think he. No, I don't think he envisions now all the libraries in the world to be built in this way. He did it
like a proposal. I don't know.
No, I think he built this building, but the similarity to Wright's building inside is striking. There are also the aspects that are a little bit cartoonish, you know, from the outside. For my taste, what I see here doesn't convince me too much. You know, it's I don't know, and the columns seem to be a little too thin, and what is here is almost pop architecture. It doesn't convince me a lot, but anyway, he built it. I like the view from the top. Yes, I do, because I see this this movement of this. I mean, there is something so-called natural about it, but there are also aspects in this building that turn me off because of this cartoonish interpretation of what Wright did, and Wright was not joking there. But this goes with his eyeglasses, with eye frames, you know, with glass frames. There is something in him, and maybe this is also part of the success. He is a serious architect, but he also has a side that is a little bit, I don't know, not very stringent, so to speak. Like here, I almost see the ears of Mickey Mouse, or anyway, something like this turns me off. But of course, it's irrelevant that it turns me off. But I like this view from the top, and even in this picture is these interconnecting shapes that are distinct but also together. And now, and I think this is the last work, an art university library, another library. Here there are some references, but not so obvious, to Louis Kahn. Not towards the outside, but maybe the inside. Yeah. Like he's experimenting. He's not inhibited. And the arch is problematized, and it's a contemporary arch. A contemporary version of the arch is a little bit, even here, a little bit cartoonish for my taste. But again, who cares that it is a little bit cartoonish for me? There are nice views, though. You know, here you see the various layers that compose this building, vertically speaking. Yeah. The duality that it was present from the very beginning is present here too. You have the so-called foliage of the tree, or the branching of the tree, and then you have the flat roofs that are. The section is interesting too, because he has a sloping plane. He has so it's not just horizontal, and I think this is nice. and it continues the land actually. The profile of the land goes through the building with the same sloping angle. This now we arrive on the last image. Is the same opera in Taiwan. It's also called Taichung Theatre, and this is the last image on Toyo. I wanted to end with it because it's this paradigmatic view where you have the cave and you have the modern interventions, the red cubicle and the blue one, and then you have the lighting, which is organic in a way, but it's central, but it's also capricious in the sense that the perimeter line is neither a circle nor an ellipse, and it's appropriate for the for a cave. Now we can go to, if you want, to Mackintosh. So we go back 1.5 centuries or so. Okay, slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so he was born on the 7th of June, so that tomorrow would be, so exactly 152 years ago. He died at 60. He was an interesting man. He had himself, I think, a dark side, and he even renounced architecture in his later years, although he was successful, to paint mostly flowers and landscapes. And he was an exceptional designer. I'm sure you know the furniture, the chairs, the famous Mackintosh chairs. I don't know why it's written Mackintosh, please forgive it. His wife, Margaret MacDonald, she was an interesting artist too, and she had a big influence on him. And I think, and I read that he renounced architecture, so probably under her influence. They went to France and they painted for a number of years, landscapes, flowers, and they also had designs. This is an early project, but you know, 150 years ago, this is an architecture that is modern. I mean, look at the resoluteness of these diagonals, and the triangle is quite modern, so unadorned as it is. Although it looks a little bit like a student project, but he was very young. This is a project for a cathedral, Lincoln Cathedral, but I will see it in detail further. But just a second, please. Not sure. Yeah, okay. Slide. The famous Mackintosh chair, but he has different versions of it. He was quite a good designer. I mean, these chairs are still being produced today. They're more like thrones in a way, and I don't know how comfortable they are. Maybe they are moderately comfortable.
Well, they have been. When I visited the Glasgow School of Art, our guides tour said that they're actually not that comfortable.
Right, that's what I expected.
And they have a tendency to, he also made for the Baroness that owned the tea room in Glasgow, and yes. He made this sort of throne, and it was it had the tendency to flip at first, to fall, because it was so tall. So I really like his aesthetic. I think the ones that have round edges are more used today, actually, a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, please, wanna tell us whenever you feel like saying something, because you actually visited his building and you saw things made by You know, like, so your intervention, I think, is very, very welcome.
It was a long time ago, so.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it couldn't be so long because you are, yes, you are 8 years old, but still, you know, it can be too long ago. I'm joking, of course. I mean, you are young, so, you know, anyway, I'm sure you remember things. But here there are also strange things. Look at these little spheres, you know, these little, and they are decorative, I think, or they allow for this the back to move it in various positions. It's possible. I don't know, but here, anyway,
Looks
this
like
one,
an electric chair.
in a way, yeah. But this one is as it is. He has better designs than this one.
I had the same feeling, Andrei.
What? That it's an electric chair?
That it yeah, it gave you the feeling that it's an electric chair. I don't know why. I had this feeling.
And you see the seat is very low actually. Maybe I think that I don't know, 35, 40 centimeters. It has to be a little higher.
Maybe it could come with a cushion, so that's why he
Yes,
took
that's possible. Yes,
left a space for.
yes. Another throne. One day maybe I'll show you my own thrones. I did at one time, I call them ceremonial chairs. I designed a chair for Faust or for a perfectionist, a chair for a father, a chair for a son, a chair for an alchemist, and a chair for a man and a woman sitting at the same time on the chair. But unfortunately, back to back. I'll show you. They were all golden. And by the way of golden, I learned yesterday from the radio that they are building now. In fact, it's almost finished. A hotel in Vietnam, totally covered in gold. Unbelievable. Like, this is what the world needs. You know, a golden hotel. No, he was a very interesting designer and a very interesting architect and a beautiful watercolorist. I mean, his flowers are magnificent. They are a little bit decorative, but no, they are very, very good. He did all of this. They are all his. The ones on the right as well. Now, this is not necessarily a chair you would have in the kitchen. It's like,
I read that the backs of those chairs were so high because people used to wear hats, and the chair had to be a background for also for the hat. But I don't know if the source was right or not.
right. Interesting. No, but you see, he uses tall bags for in all cases. It's just, because I think I mean, I know because I did one like this myself, you know, tall. This is almost like the chair becomes a human being almost, you know, like it almost doesn't need someone to sit on it. It's incorporated into the chair.
And I also read that those high backs were defining a space by themselves around the table. They created a definite space somehow. They shaped the space like some walls.
Yes.
Yeah, I was about to sit in my head. There was this idea that he was trying to make like furniture that was actually more related to architecture in itself, like a sort of a mini building in a chair,
Right.
in a way.
No, you have a point. Yes, they are architectural chairs, if I can say so.
Can we relate his designs of furniture to the Art Deco period?
Yes, in part,
No, I mean,
also to Art Nouveau.
I don't know when he made these chairs. So
Well, at the turn of the century.
He was in the Art Nouveau period.
Yes.
yeah, but they are so geometrical that it takes me a little bit further towards Art Deco and the relation with the architecture.
I
Right,
read
right,
that he
right, right.
inspired Secession in Austria.
Was also inspired by Japanese artwork. He was in Japan, and that influenced a lot his geometrical interpretation. So I think that has relevance to the way he like interpreted the Art Nouveau thing into his work.
Mhm. Well, anyway, the frontiers are sometimes not so rigid between, let's say, the Japanese, the exoticism of the East, of the Orient, or Art Deco or Art Nouveau. You know, but I mean, you can locate them in temporal terms, you know, at the turn of the century. But they are still, if you make such a chair today, I think it looks convincing, so to speak, even today. Did you try, Juana, to sit on something like this?
No, you weren't allowed to sit on the chairs.
Right. They are not meant to, they are meant to look at, not to sit on. Well, because they are, you know, expensive pieces, you know, historical pieces.
I also went and visited the art lover's house, which was not made technically by him, but was inspired by his drawings. But you weren't allowed to sit on the chairs. and actually, then there weren't any like replica chairs allowed. So I never had a chance to sit, but I did touch the wood. So
when nobody saw you.
yeah, because in the Glasgow School of Art, as you know, like the most impressive. But well, when you reach that part, maybe I can. But
Okay,
I only
very good.
vague memory.
I will reach that part.
Yeah, sorry.
But please continue. I mean, if you want to say something else. But he did all kinds of designs, not just for chairs, although we are back to the chairs. I don't know about the color of the cushions. I don't know if that's the original color. I hope not. But I'm a little bit allergic to pink. But that's my problem, probably. I mean, look at these details here, you know. Who would make something like this today, you know? These are obviously ornamental. And you know, I mean, to make such a piece of furniture, which doesn't look too complex or too difficult, but still, it has elements that require some attention, not just some attention. You can buy these things if you get rich, you know, you can buy them on eBay, you can find Mackintosh chairs. Well, produced today, some of them, but maybe even original, so-called original ones. Well, they are Victorian chairs, you know, it was a different mentality, a different society. Now look how pathetically banal looks this chair, which is considered a masterpiece of modern design. Compared to, because I think the chair is very interesting, and I tell the students all the time, try to design a chair. In fact, Miss van der Rohe said that it's more difficult to design a chair than a skyscraper. And I believe he's right, because I tried myself. Usually, a skyscraper, you just design a floor and then you extrude it. You make, I don't know how many floors, speaking simplistically. But to make a chair that is both functional and harmoniously designed and you know, innovative and pleasing is not easy. And it's very, very interesting, the exercise to try to make a chair. And interestingly, I think a chair says something about autobiographical about its author. I know it happened when I tried to do a chair. he did say something about my inner life, so to speak, about my psychology or my psyche. Yeah, and it's interesting to make a chair. Frank Lloyd Wright also made chairs, and he complained later in life that he has problems with a certain part of his body because he sat all his life on his chairs. At least he was, you know, honest about his chairs not being very comfortable. As probably the ones by Mackintosh, at least he has here a soft part, but I mean approximately soft or softer. But many chairs do not have this luxury, and you just sit on a plain board. Now here we see other pieces of furniture. He designed many. I like Mackintosh. I like him very much. Maybe because I also paint watercolors with flowers. At one moment I did, I think 1,000. I didn't count them. Plus I lost many of them.
He also inspired Frank Lloyd Wright with, I think, with how do you say, tainted glass and the chairs and the I don't know, some elements with Japanese inspiration, maybe.
Right. Now I don't know if these were done by him or his wife. He worked with his wife together. You saw the Willow tea room, no, Juana?
Yes, I saw it. But now it's a functioning tea room. You can go and visit it, but to get into like the main thing, it's really quite expensive. I mean, it's a very sophisticated sort of experience for the upper class of Glasgow.
You mean intimidating?
Yeah. So yeah, but I wanted to say that there are a lot of also tapestries that he and his wife was into, like textile.
Yes.
And there are a lot of tapestries in the Glasgow National Museum gallery. So, and it's quite impressive. And I think this element of putting like decor into, so you have like painting, ceramics, you work with different sort of materials and at different scales. And also because you talked about making a chair, and I thought, well, that's an interesting subject, maybe architects who designed furniture, and how when you like reduce the scale, you have to more profoundly think of the implication with its owner, with how like our body sits in the chair, and also our bodies are very different. So actually the chairs, if you were to design a perfect chair, it would have to be tailored to the specific person that you're actually designing the chair, because we also have different proportions. So anyways, yeah, sorry.
No, this is actually very interesting, and maybe the time will come again when we design a piece of furniture just as a tailor would do a suit for someone. So you make a chair not for an anonymous mass of people, but for a specific person. And I think this can also be done with buildings, in the sense that, of course, for buildings you do, but I would go even further by saying that the biography is my interest in narrative architecture. But if you have a narrative chair, you can also have a narrative building, because the buildings that we do say nothing actually about except that the functions are done in a certain way. But you can incorporate very subtle things there, that have to do with maybe with the other body of the owner or the beneficiary, to use Toyo Ito's suggestion that there are two bodies. I think functionalism, as we practice it, is very impoverishing and very, very simplistic. Where life is not reduced to where you put the refrigerator and where is the bathroom and where. No, life is much richer, and there is also an inner life. What about the inner life? anyone is, I mean, we are all different. So to make a house for John is different from to make a house for Helen, and in many respects.
Yeah, I'm very fascinated about this subject because I myself, I like, for example, I like tailoring and I like custom made things. I like, and it's something that is dying. I mean, people don't make clothes to fit their bodies anymore. I mean, this is just like an example, but like they think of only like to get the cheapest materials possible and without like considering their persona and a lot of trends. And if now there's a beige trends, everybody has beige in their living rooms and things like that, and we have forgotten to tailor things. And I think this is my fascination with the arts and crafts movement, because I adore it. And in Art Nouveau, I like these tiny little details that make everything have, I don't know, a soul. I think, because you were talking about soul, and I think when something is made for you by a person and you commit, it has a unique, like a unique soul to it, a thing that's just, I don't know. And it kind of, it disappears today because, you know, we want fast mass-produced things that are very cheap, and we don't want to like pay for craftsmanship anymore. So yeah.
I thank you for what you just said, because it's true. And yes, we impoverished our lives, architecture, even art. We divorced the arts. You know, the tailor. Where are the tailors today? Maybe in Bucharest there are 5 tailors left. Other cities don't have them, and other countries don't have them at all. So these craftsmen are extremely important, but they vanished, and I don't know how you can recreate, how you could bring them back. This Mackintosh, despite his, well, it's not him, sorry, that was disappointed or dissatisfied, but he kind of looks himself dissatisfied. But he worked with great tailors. I like the word that you use, because you could maybe even use this word associated with a word for architect. An architect who is tailoring a building, to me, sounds good. The act of tailoring, to tailor a building, to tailor a suit, to tailor a chair, to tailor many things. It gives identity. It gives, you said well, Juana, a soul. And I think we need back this. And we cannot just say that, well, it was a different world. Well, it was a different world, but it wasn't really so far away. Plus, we are still that human beings. I don't think I am so different from the one at the turn of the century. I'm not. Maybe a little more stupid, but that's about it. No, I'm comparing myself actually with the Greek, the ancestors, the Greeks. Forget it. I'm very tired. I say ridiculous things. Yeah, a bed. You know, it's more than a bed. It's a baldachin. It has a secondary roof. It has a, you know. Anyway, this building, I don't know what it is any longer, but will arrive at other buildings. Drawings, he drew manually, and he drew well. I mean, I like the manual drawings. Maybe one day we'll see chairs done by ourselves. We'll make an exhibition, or you know, we'll discuss them. To me, it is incredible that in 6 years of study, architecture at Minku, not once you are given such a project to design a chair, as if the architect doesn't design chairs. Mies design chairs, Wright design chairs, Alto design chairs, Le Corbusier design chairs, well, through Charlotte Perriand, but Mackintosh design chairs, and in 6 long years of study, Minku, and also the same inclusion. I don't know how it is in Timișoara, but I just don't understand it. You know, I don't understand. I mean, anyway, I don't understand many things. I think this piece is done actually by his wife. But I like these drawings, and I like even the furniture as long as I don't sit on it, although I'm not a hedonist. Look, I mean, obviously, you know, the person who makes Xerox copies, so to speak, in a Japanese company doesn't sit on this chair. This chair is made for the chief, for the boss. You can have, you know, the boss sitting here and on this chair to have the person who makes the Xerox copies. Don't misunderstand me. I have nothing against the person who makes Xerox copies, and I made myself and continue to make. But I was thinking of a movie, I think it's called The Noodle Soup, Japanese, which is very amusing. And I'll tell you a short story from this movie. A group of Japanese businessmen go to a restaurant to eat, and they enter the restaurant in the hierarchical order. You know, the boss in the first, and then, you know, all the way to the man who made Xerox copies. So they sit at the table, and the waiter comes and asks them, shows them a menu, and tells them, because it was a big celebration, what kind of a champagne do you need? Do you want? And he shows first the boss, the big man who was actually short, the menu list with champagnes. The boss knew nothing about champagnes. He helped rebuild Japan. He worked very hard. He had no time for drinking champagne. So then the waiter goes down, you know, hierarchically. It was a group of, I don't know, 8 people or 10 or whatever. And, you know, all the people in big positions knew nothing about champagne. But he arrives at the end with his list to the man who was doing Xerox copies. And that man knew a lot about champagnes. He said, please do not bring me this champagne because it tastes a little bit sour. This one, do you have one from I don't know what year? I mean, he was extremely knowledgeable. And this was a, you know, this story tells in a way how Japanese society evolved. That those who worked very hard knew nothing about champagne, but their children and the children of their children, they knew increasingly more about champagne. Anyway, the chair. You know, you can design a chair even with the T-square and the rectangle very well at home when you get bored, and it's really a nice exercise. Another piece of furniture, probably in the same willow room, where your breath is taken away if you enter, just like in the famous building by Adolf Loos in the center of Vienna. Nice, very nice. The willow tea room. Now, Anna, if you want to tell us what you saw through the window, please do so.
No, I honestly, it was not much. I've been, you weren't allowed like to enter past it's the main is upstairs. So, but I did saw like his church. He also has a church in Glasgow.
Right, I will see it.
Yes, and there was this post office kind of tower, and I saw the school that I really liked. He built the school at the outskirts of Glasgow, and you could visit all the school, and it was an interesting experience also, like to visit. And one of the because it was made for children, of course. So yeah, about the willow tea rooms, I didn't see much, so it's the least building that made an impression on me, let's say. I've seen like works of it, like of its furniture exhibited in the museum, because most of the furniture that exists now in it, they're replicas. The originals are kept in museums. So
right now, it's strange. unless it is a building that became a school, but I don't think I have it in this presentation. And I thought
Oh,
it was,
okay. I will send it to you because it's
no, I
actually
believe you. It's just that it means I was not as thorough as I wish I was.
no, I think I wanted to say it's very interesting because Glasgow has a very different light, as like Glasgow is very dark, and the architecture is also like the materials used for the facades, they're very dark. And it's interesting how Mackintosh sometimes tried to play with, because he always went for either white, mostly like as the main color, or black. Like he always went for these colors, and I think that has to do with the light and the way like Glasgow feels, because it's very humid, and there's moss on buildings. And sometimes I think when he wanted to make an atmosphere very light and cheerful, like it's the tea rooms, because he was like, you're drinking your tea, so everyone was very chill. He used white, and also in bedrooms. But when he wanted to go for a more like solemn, he used black furniture. And I think this is also interesting. Okay, yeah.
No,
Sorry.
thank you. No, I thank you. I think this was done by his wife. Now, this is the church in Glasgow that you probably refer to.
Yeah, that's the church.
Did you go inside?
Yes, I did. But it's very hard to visit unless you really want to visit it, because it has very limited hours of visitation.
Yes.
But you see, like the brickwork that he used, that's like this red color is all over Glasgow, and what makes like Glasgow for me, it's a very interesting city, because I like cities that are not posh, and Glasgow is an industrial city. So I think it's a very interesting combination in his architecture of a sort of like industrial, not very glamorous thing, but combined with small delicate details. And it's a sort of a contrast, because like his architecture sometimes is very bulky, like in like the volumes, but all the details are very finely carved out, and I like this contrast in his buildings.
This I noticed also at the beginning of his professional life. Stephen Hall impressed me with he had a kind of a simplistic box-like building or structure, but then he had these small details that were very exquisite. I don't know if he still does this. Probably not, considering the scale of the buildings. But at the beginning, when he did private houses, I remember when I was part of an exhibition in New York that he was part of too, and it was with portfolios in architecture. And it was like in the story with the Japanese, the poorest man had the biggest and the most luxurious portfolio. That was mine. And he who had success, and certainly and hopefully more money, much more than I did, had the smallest portfolio. But his portfolio was the best. At that time, I realized that Stephen Hall had something to say. Maybe in time, because of the multitude of the projects he's doing, some of that initial quality diluted itself a little bit. But still, yes, this is an interesting idea. You can make a building that is so-called almost brutally modern, but then you soften it with some details, some handle of a door, little details that humanize it, and yeah.
Yeah, and I also think he tended to use like materials, because again, I tend to be fixated on this idea, because Glasgow and its weather being so wet, it leaves its marks on its buildings. So its buildings grow old a lot faster than they would in Mediterranean climate, let's say, because this is like, and I think the material that he used materials in such a way that they would grow old beautifully. And I think he also like took this into account, because also Hill House is a sort of a very rough gray color, you know, that sits very beautiful on the landscape. And the way the of course some of these bricks are replaced because it was restored, the church, I think. But it's very, you know, I think this idea that he also had, and a lot of buildings in Glasgow are like how to make a building, how to put the material of the building so that it will look good as it ages. And yeah, sorry, because of the bricks that are black.
Yes, but actually there is one detail to this problem. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th, actually when these buildings were made, there was also the problem of the black smoke from the coal heating, the coal burning. Basically, all United Kingdom was working on coal. They didn't have oil or gas or things like that at that time. And the smoke from the coal results in a very acidic combination, a very acidic solution. So actually the rain was blackening the brick, and it's happening all over the United Kingdom, not only in Glasgow. But here we can see a very good example of that. The brick is blackened because of that acidic sooty. Actually, it was a lot of soot in the air, and from time to time, the buildings required replacement on the brickworks, and you can obviously see that here.
Radu, I thought you are a specialist in Japan, but now I see you are a specialist.
No, I'm a specialist in ceramics. So actually,
okay.
arts
Excellent.
and crafts in England was an important thing. And here you can actually see around the windows. Maybe if I don't know, I need another color or something.
There was at a moment in time in London, I think, with like they had a problem with a very toxic sort of fog, right?
Well, yeah, but it's not actually only the fog. It's actually the rainwater mixing with the soot in the air, and it combines with the carbon and the hydrogen, and it creates actually chlorhydric acid, which actually burns the ceramic material, and also results in the blackening because it becomes more porous, and it absorbs all the soot in the air. And think about the environment of Charles Dickens novels or things like that.
My favorite is Tale of Two Cities.
Well, yeah, but the idea of that gloomy, like you said, also the light is a little bit darker. And here, actually, you can see the way this affected the vertical surfaces. You know,
Radu, I wanted very Glasgow and the whole Scotland is very different from London, actually, as a feeling.
Yes, but what I was trying to say actually was related to the bricks and the materials, not actually the atmosphere.
I know.
Phenomenon in itself.
I have this love of Scotland, and I want to protect it. Because
you are doing it, Juana. You are protecting it very well.
It has this amazing atmosphere that I absolutely adore, and it's and I think it's very different than the rest of the UK. So, and I've been to. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Do you know the Parliament building in Edinburgh?
Yeah. I've been to Edinburgh.
No, but did you see that building by Miralles and?
Yeah, I did saw it. I saw it on the outer side because you're not allowed to go in, at least when I was there. And then I climbed the hill up top, so I saw Edinburgh and the Parliament building from up top.
I think Scotland has some problems with you, Juana, because I don't from what you told us, you know, they don't actually allow you to go anywhere. I mean,
No,
Israel.
no, you were allowed. You are.
I'm joking.
Sorry. No, but it's the parliament building. You cannot go in the parliament building.
No, but that building is, yes, it is the parliament, but it's not like in Bucharest. It's very open, very democratic, very, well, at least on paper.
What I'm saying is, like, I went in my first, it was like 9 years ago that I visited Scotland. So I don't know if things have changed.
I don't know. I never went there. Anyway, look at the white and black aesthetics that you mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, such beautiful details.
He also designed, but it was not built, the cathedral in Lincoln. You'll see the project. Yes, the patina of the facade, you know, if it was indeed caused by what Radu told us, and it's legitimate what he said. I think this patina, I think it's very important how a building ages. And many of the buildings built today, even the most famous, you know, they don't age well, because for a material to age well, I think it needs to be organic, to be related to the earth in some form, you know, the wood. Well, actually, I'm not right, because steel also, I like you know, rust. But plastics and well, actually, even concrete. I'm turning completely against myself. Even concrete looks good with the patina. You know, yeah. If it's not, you know, painted or
maybe the thing is between mineral, you know, and organic and synthetic. When you're thinking about synthetic, it's plastics and those. But the other ones, which are either organic or mineral, age well. So.
No, it's important, and we often do not think about this. That the building we design and build, we don't usually think about how it's going to be 10, 20, 50 years from the time of being built if it's not demolished. You know, an old, talking about tailoring, I saw old clothes that were, you know, handmade, hand sewn, and with good materials. Even if they have imperfections caused by time, they are still beautiful. So I think aging is important. Aging is important for many things, not just making babka, I mean kozonach. I mean aging, time. We don't talk enough about time. You know, I don't know if you know about the artist turned architect in the States, Vito Acconci. He said clearly, and you can find the quotation on the web, architecture is not about space, it's about time. We are obsessed with space, but we forget time. Of course, they are related, but they are still different. And in all things, you can see the workings of time in a more subtle and complex and poetical ways than in new works. This is another church. Even here, you can see the weather that Juana mentioned, and also Radu. You know, it looks dramatic in a way, but I like it. I mean, if you have you know, a liking for romantic features, so to speak, here you have it. Pardon?
No, sorry, I wanted to say that it's funny that a lot of the buildings actually have moss on their brickwork. So if you go in Glasgow, a lot of buildings have moss, like moss grows on buildings.
Nice.
But one question, it's actually on the brickwork or on the stonework? Because it's interesting.
I don't know. I've been...
Usually it doesn't grow on brick. On the stone, yes, but on the brick, I don't know. It could be. That's why I'm asking.
like I saw a lot of moss on buildings, but I mean I don't have that an acute sort of memories to like I know that this was just like my impression that it was a lot of moss on buildings and I like it, but I guess maybe it was more on stone than on brick. I have no idea. There are a
You
lot
know
of
what
stone.
happens? Actually, the moss feeds itself from the minerals on the support layer. And when it's happening on a material like brick, it actually erodes the brick. Combined with what I said earlier, it doesn't stay too long. And in this case, you can actually see the building is even more beautiful because of this patina, which happens on the stones and they don't need replacement actually. While on the brick,
Please do not call this building beautiful. If this building was in the United States,
I'm talking of the surface and
no,
of the
I'm joking because
you know,
I actually
that's
like
why.
it, but maybe I have a morbid inclination. But this building, if this building was in the United States, either it was refurbished, so to speak, and painted white or whatever, or it would have been immediately demolished. This kind of aesthetics, if I can call it so, for the Americans would be totally unacceptable. If I would show you a house I bought with $2,000, which my daughter borrowed from the bank in Cincinnati, which was beautiful from the turn of the century, maybe made it around the time that this building was made, and they demolished it. The city demolished it, and there was nothing wrong with the structure, was nothing wrong with, even had the original framing of the windows, of the door. It's just a crime. Those Americans are totally stupid. They don't have such a long history, and they ruin good buildings in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's an important city. 1,400 buildings were so-called condemned. When I went there to see my purchase, because I bought it on eBay at a hard-fought auction, I couldn't believe it. 1,400 buildings condemned. They condemn a building as they would condemn a person. And you can save the building if you have the money for a bathing, you know, $10,000, 20, 50, I don't know. If you want to save the criminal building, you can, with money again. You put down money, which I didn't have, so I lost it. It was destroyed, a beautiful building, and one day I'll show it to you. Maybe I'll send you an email because I know.
In the same time, in Scotland, you actually are required money to conserve the building. If you try to do something new, or I don't know, to replace something in a wrong way, you can actually get in trouble. So they actually care about this heritage.
Good for them.
I wanted to say that I think the same thing is happening now in Romania. I mean, with old industrial buildings that actually have a unique beauty to them. I mean, here I live in Iași, so here in Iași there's an old industrial site called Fortus, and it's absolutely beautiful. We have other industrial areas, and the architecture in those industrial buildings are more architecture than what is built today, if I'm allowed to say, and we're just demolishing them.
I know, you are right. You are totally right. They are ruining, they're destroying truly great things. Some of these industrial, we call it almost industrial archaeology, are very valuable, and or they sell the steel, like they sold the whole combinatus siderurgic in Copșa Mică. They I mean, truly incredible structures. Anyway, interesting building. A little sad, but for a melancholy Romanian, even more valuable. Now, he was a good man, Mackintosh, no doubt. Why he renounced architecture in such a dramatic way, I do not know. There aren't too many cases like this. You know, I mean, there are architects who paint, yes, even flowers. but they do not renounce architecture. He renounced architecture for a good number of years, not just a few months. Liverpool Cathedral competition. Well, it's a cathedral, but he suffered when he didn't win. I understood. I see he did 2 designs, or even more than 2.
But I think his aesthetic actually works well on cathedrals.
Well,
Like,
yes, but like
yes.
most Victorian architecture, if I can call his architecture Victorian. No, but yeah, you are right. But almost, I mean, not just his, the kind of architecture that was done then, you know, accommodated such a program.
It has a sort of like gothic, but it's not gothic, but it has this sort of gothic vibe for me, which I think works. I mean,
Well, very much so. I mean, the Gothic revival, the neo-Gothic, the Gothic revival in the second half of in the 19th century to begin with. I don't know if you know of Pugin. Pugin built until he lost his mind at 40. Countless churches, I think around 40, and cathedrals, and designed furniture. Yes, you know, in England and Scotland too, I imagine there was a great interest in the Gothic. So there are Gothic elements, so to speak, in his work and in the work of many other architects in the 19th century in England. They were very convincing about it, and it didn't look, their architecture didn't look, you know, passé or mimicking, or no. It was assimilated very well. 1898, International Exhibition Design. He proposed this building, but I don't think it was built. Ideal house, designed at the turn, I mean, literally at the turn of the century, never built. He designed a house that was built after his death, I think in the second half of the 20th century, and we'll see. Hill House, this one. The National Trust for Scotland plans to build a huge transparent cage around the Charles Rennie Mackintosh design Hill House. So sandstone structure is dissolving. Maybe, you know, the reason is what Radu told us. The property was built as a home for the future by Mackintosh between 1902 and 1904, but his choice of the new material, Portland cement for the render, led to the problems, as it has allowed water to soak in from the day it was first applied. So it's not this house. There is another house, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was built after.
it's the art lover's house, the one that was built after his death, I think.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, the art lover's house, yes. And this is, you know, we call it a house, but it's more like a castle almost. Anyway, the Scotland has big castles. Once I gave a lecture, I made a presentation in the studio of Adrian Spirescu and on Louis Kahn. And while I was working to install my projector, I asked the students, just to start the conversation, what do you know about Louis Kahn? And of 30 people almost entering the 4th year, only one knew the name. And what he knew was that Louis Kahn made some sketches after Scottish castles. Can you believe it? They even didn't know the name, or at least, I mean, maybe some were timid and they didn't say anything, but and the only one that explicitly knew something was just that he did some sketches after Scottish castles. Now, I have to tell you, this is unacceptable. To have students in the 4th year of an architecture university who didn't hear the name of Louis Kahn and who didn't know at least 1, 2 buildings, 3 buildings by him, I find it unacceptable. So an educational system that is unable to transmit, of course the students can learn by themselves. They can, but not everybody. They need, I mean, why do they go to the school then? You know, just for the diploma and learn almost nothing? To me, I'm amazed. I mean, I met at Minku students in the 5th year who didn't know about Peter Eisenman at all. They didn't know the name. But to also not know about Louis Kahn, I find it incredible. I mean, this is basic knowledge. It's not that, you know, it's not something optional, you know. I didn't take that optional course, so I don't know about Louis. It's like a writer who never heard of, I don't know, James Joyce or, you know, Shakespeare even. Who? What is going on with education in Romania, really? What is going on? 6 long years. I mean, we are not talking here about, you know, post high school little course, you know, semester in a technical school. We are talking about a university. I think this is unacceptable. And anyway, I'm preaching to the people who cannot do anything about it, maybe. But no, you could, because you are the elite and you are supposed to run soon the schools, the universities, change something for God's sake.
I maybe it was just a coincidence, because like well, I help my doctoral professor is Mihai Drishku, and actually this year he teaches history of architecture, but in Iași we're a very small faculty, and he couldn't teach the lecture about Khan, and I taught it for him, and it was and the students really liked him. I mean, they really related to him, although they mostly saw the monumentality of it. But maybe it was just a coincidence, because I think also now with what's happening in architecture, Khan is becoming more relevant, because there's this tendency for like very like very opaque, sort of like rigid volumes, like carved volumes. So I don't know, maybe maybe it doesn't speak for all students. I have hope in students. I have hope, a lot of hope.
No, but actually, I mean, I've heard Rem Koolhaas saying never again when he was talking about Louis Kahn. Never again. So he was so intensely against Kahn, and actually Kahn is not so relevant as perhaps he deserves, and maybe without that, perhaps. Deconstruction and then certain mid-century nostalgias made him recede. Maybe for us, he has some relevance because he has a so-called romantic side and the myth of the solitary creator who, you know, he had an unusual professional past. But again, you know, the lack of the basics. I mean, this is not general knowledge, you know, cultura generale. That's not what it is. This is the ABC of education in architecture. I really don't understand how 300 professors at Minku do not understand this. It's beyond me. And other things are beyond me. I don't know what the students learn, really. I don't know. A student told me, I hope it's not one of you, told me that she went to Liechtenstein for you know, a semester or so, and that she learned in Liechtenstein, or it was, yeah, Liechtenstein, I think, in a semester more than what she learned in 6 years at me. And she was a good student with Erasmus, and now she works for Fujimoto. And before she worked for Dominique Perrault. So she loves architecture. So she is a serious student. And she was a serious student. And when a serious student tells me or anybody that in one semester in Liechtenstein, she learned more than in 6 years in Minku better listen, because this is tragic and it's serious. Unfortunately, the dean is not here. Rector is not here, you know, but it's very serious, and I suffer. I suffer because I think it's unacceptable what's going on. But I saw it. I saw it. There are exceptions, of course, like exceptions like Andrei. Andrei knows a lot, but he is an exception. The majority don't know.
I think this is, I think it's a system that is like, it cannot be reduced only to the professor or only to the students. It's something that works like in a circle. So it's all a circle. And like I had a student now telling the work we did this semester.
I don't hear you now.
Right. I had a student who wanted to thank me for the work that we did this semester, and he also like complained about our faculty, which of course Yash is, well, it's kind of terrible, but anyways, I told him that like if he has willingness, like as it was my case, you can always strive to learn to. There are a lot of resources now, but I think we're also focused on all the new architecture, and I see my students doing this a lot. They're focused on the new architecture, and they're only looking at new examples of architecture, and they're completely forgetting the old, I mean old, not that old, but like all the architecture from the 50s and whatever 20s. They don't know that there are references now that are actually taken from that kind of architecture. So I think it's also this like look that, you know, what is old is sort of outdated or irrelevant, and there's not this understanding that there are principles that repeat themselves throughout architecture. And I think this is also something that like students have to constantly think about the way they work and about the way they learn and think, and also professors as well. And we have to not get stuck in a sort of linear progression. It has to be a circle, and students and professors, it's so, because I think it's very dangerous to fall into one extreme or the others, you know, blaming only the teachers, blaming only the students. I think we are part of an ecosystem, and it's more sorry, I wanted to
no, Juana, you mentioned the circle, and I'm glad you mentioned it, and I agree with you, it is a circle. But in an authoritarian educational system, which is not circular but linear, like ours, the professor is fundamental, because it is the duty of the professor, and that's why he is paid for. The students put bread on the table of the professor in order for the professor to give them the right indications, to guide them through the complexity of the matter with his knowledge and his sensitivity and his talent, and he doesn't do it because it's unbelievable what is happening. I accuse the professors. Of course, the students can by themselves, but why do they go to the school? And I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, you learn at home what is very necessary instead of learning in school. I mean, what is the school actually teaching? If a very good student tells me that what she learned in Mincu for 6 years was less than what she learned in Liechtenstein for 6 months, and I believe her. I mean, not everybody can work for Dominique Perrault and Fujimoto, and she does. So obviously she's very good, because to enter in these offices, you have to fight with thousands of applicants. So obviously she's very good and very serious. But this is very serious. I mean, plus the relationship between the professor and the student, it's exactly that it is not a circle. They are not friends like in the West. So even more so, because they are not friends, they are not colleagues, but there is this submissive relationship. The student is submissive towards the master, and the master doesn't teach him or her properly. You know, what does the master actually teach? Some stupidities related to some ridiculous functions that you need, I don't know, a vestibule in front of, I don't know, ridiculous things that you can learn in one evening going through some, you know, Neufert books or whatever. I mean, really, I'm very much against the educational system in Romania. I think it's terrible. Yes, there are some exceptions because people who are talented and devoted find their ways, doesn't matter the school. But 6 long years, I mean, for how long do we live? 6 years is not a small period of time. I like this. I mean, you know, it's very, I mean, it's from that time, but it's still modern somehow. And I like the asymmetry and you know, the whimsicality of it also in a way. No, he was very talented. Now you saw this one, no? Or you didn't, Juana?
Yes, I did. I did saw that.
Okay, so can you tell us something about it?
It's at the outskirts of Glasgow.
Yes. And
So,
this was built after in the second half of the 20th century, no?
yes, after his death.
Yes.
So it's so yeah, all the pieces there are new, but they're done in his after his in the style of his sketches. The thing that left a mark on me was the staircase and living room, because he has this way of conceiving. His living rooms are actually quite long in proportion, and I like, and also that what you see in the picture, that's the terrace, and it's quite lovely. It's an outdoor terrace, and that's the part that I liked as well. But again, like, I saw this building 8 years ago or 9. I think it was 9 years ago. So when I was like, I was 21 at the moment when I saw the building. And now I'm 31. So no, it was 10
No,
years.
no, I know. Sorry, I thought at that time you were 70, and now you are 80. The way you talk about a long time ago, yes, it was in a way for any age, because, you know, 10 years. But going back to, because I'm still upset about this. So the announcement for these, you know, meetings on Zoom were published or made public on Icarch. Admin who I take hours to send them to mail to professors, to students. And, you know, it hurts me that they are not interested, and the students are not interested because they see that the professors are not interested. Because if some professors would tell the students, I will go there, so you better come too, the students will come. But if the students see that the professors are not interested, they are not interested either. So it's a circle, as you said, Ioana. It is indeed a circle, but it is a fatidical circle, which leads to, I mean, what do people do now? It's Saturday, right? They are at home because the pandemic is still on. And what do? They prefer to watch TV instead of learning something about Mackintosh or Ito. I mean, if even these names do not create some desire to know, I don't know what. Tomorrow I will try with Frank Lloyd Wright. I do not sleep. I try to prepare as well as I can. I have many materials with Wright. I'll put them in order. And again, you know, at best, 5 people will show up of maybe 3,000 people that know about it. It's unbelievable. This lethargy, this lehamite, as the president of the school told me that the students have, but it's not just the students. The professors also have lehamite, and this is the big problem. In Iași, I know Mr. Drișcu, he has knowledge. I talked with him. He knows things, and I hope, you know, he's able to transmit these things to the students. But yes, we have courses in Bucharest also, the theory and history of architecture and all the rest. But usually this knowledge is reduced to identify this is a Gothic window, so to speak, or, you know, some external little things, and nothing about modern architecture or contemporary architecture. Forget it. In Krakow, in Poland, contemporary architecture is taught 2 years, the first one and the second one. And it shows, because I went to Paris with students and was a Polish Erasmus student. She dwarfed the Romanian students because she knew a lot. Not in Romania, it's not necessary. Why should we know about Toyo or Ishigami or Fujimoto? It's not important. Louis Kahn is also not important. Who cares, you know, about this, you know, architect in the States 50 years ago? Unbelievable. To me, this service done to the Romanian preparation of students or architects is, it is actually, it should be illegal. I think it should be illegal. What can I say? 6 long years, taxes growing, but for what? To labor like a madman with a T-square and a rectangle for a few years, when the world renounced the T-square and the rectangle 30 years ago. This is the interior. Of course, I wouldn't step on this rug. Did you, Juana?
Sorry. Oh yeah, I wanted to tell something that's really there is on the staircase. There's a nook. There's a nook with, like, he liked to put benches in the alcoves of the window, and the nook on the staircase, also in the Hill House, it's very like cozy. And no, there was like you couldn't like enter the living room. There was this you could see it, but there was the oh no, there was some rooms had, like, you know, the velvet string attached to them, but not all the rooms. So I in the ones that had like more original pieces had the velvet thingy.
No, but I was talking about this rug. I wouldn't step on it in no way. I mean,
Yeah, it's white.
yes, I mean, God. Anyway, his furniture looks, you know, even more imposing on the background of such a rug, which is not a small rug, as far as I can evaluate. Well, a different room. The atmosphere is similar to the Willow room, no? Tea room.
Yes, it's very similar. I went in this room. It's very nice because you can see there's the windows and how they are. There's the woodwork around the windows creates these spaces, these sort of like niches, and it's a very interesting. It was sort of a space within a space, and I like that, the feeling of it.
Yes. A space within a space, yes.
So he has this treatment of the windows, because the windows are quite like, there's the space between the windows is quite large. So he in this case he created like this sort of a structure that's also a furniture, and that was yeah. It's very feminine. He kind of has this, sometimes he has this contrast between like music rooms or sleep rooms that are very feminine and light, and then living rooms that are more like masculine in palette and feel, I think.
So you say that the bedrooms are more feminine and the living room more masculine?
Yes, I mean that's because when you showed that image, of course, the art lover's house is not a house that was, now it's not lived, so it's a museum. But also in the Hill House, the bedrooms are light in color, so they're also white, from what I remember.
Yeah, interesting observation. I mean, you would say somehow it's in reverse. I mean, in a way, during the day you would expect, you know, to be lighter, and at night you don't really need so much light because you go to sleep. But here you have lightness in the spaces for the night and darkness in the spaces for day.
Maybe it's because of the female, more of the female and masculine thing, because maybe like the sleeping room is more of a feminine sort of space, and the living room, I don't know, maybe that's the way he thought of them in the more, in the sense, not necessarily as day and night, but like what room belongs to which which sex, let's say. I don't know.
It's also very possible that his wife, who collaborated with him, had a hand here, because I read that, you know, she also worked on decorations or you know, at least some details. So it's possible that, but I think he was aware, and I think this aspect of the masculine principle and the feminine principle is very important, and it was addressed not just by the alchemists or the psychologists, but also by important artists, even Mondrian. You know, the vertical represented the male and the horizontal the female, and he played with the dialectics between them. We are not talking enough about these things, and I think they are important, because if you create a whole work that is a whole, you cannot avoid the yin and yang dialectics. You have to think about the day and the night. You have to think about east and west, about up and down, about other pairs of, you know, other dualities. And I don't think we think about this. I mean, in schools, these matters, which I think are very important, are neglected. Because even, you know, in terms of colors or the materials you use, soft and dark and heavy, and you know, there are qualities that complement each other and create a feeling of a whole.
Well, those things I think are also about the tailoring of a space, because there are actually subjective things. The way someone perceives masculinity and femininity could be another way perceived by somebody else. So it depends on who's going to use that space, who's going to live there.
Right.
And I think the collaboration with his wife is very important, because you can see, for example, the flower, the peony, you know, in Romanian bujor. It's almost everywhere as a detail, even on the rug.
It's a rose.
No, actually, this one, I don't think it's a rose, because it's more spherical, and it has a lot of petals, and it's not symmetrical.
I know it's the Glasgow rose. It's a symbol they use all the time, but
oh, then it's my mistake. Perhaps it's a rose, but it's an unusual rose, and you can find it on a lot of places around. Like on the rug, it's blue. Here on the furniture, on the bed, or that's the chimney, the fireplace, I think, maybe. And for me, it's something perhaps as a signature of his wife, that's doing all the decorative details, like the textiles and perhaps also the shades of the light fixtures and things like that. And it's a matter of authorship, the creators, the artists, but also the beneficiary. So they have to be on the same page, and the rest of the public, it's difficult to decide whether it's masculine, feminine, and.
By the way, I wanted to say just something interesting about flowers. Do you know what the national flower of Scotland is? Because it's very funny. Because
No.
it's not. It's a thistle.
Yeah, Ciulinu de Bărăgan, thistle. Yeah.
Very funny, because it's a contrast between the femininity of the, yeah, okay.
Well, and in the same time, I know there's always talking about the England rose, right? So actually, when you're thinking of a rose in Scotland, I don't know, but I don't know a lot about these things. So, but in arts and crafts movement, they use the botanical leitmotifs a lot. So it's natural that they appear here.
But one thing is for sure, ornaments are not rejected. And you know, the richness of what we see derives in significant amount from the ornamental work. I mean, you try to imagine this room without the ornamental work. And again, we come back to the education in Romania, where ornaments are completely ignored. In fact, not that they are ignored, they are taboo, they are interdicted. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. But talking about the architect and the wife of the architect, or the architect and the husband of the architect, the collaboration between Yel and Ya, between him and her, is very important, and it can be traced, the significance of the collaboration in cases that are very well known, you know, like Alvar Aalto worked with his wife, Mackintosh worked with his wife, Margaret.
Well, sorry,
pardon?
No, I wanted to say that it's also sort of a triangle, because her sister, Frances McDowell, was also working with them. So it's...
Well, it was more than a triangle. There was also the husband of her sisters, of his wife's sister, because maybe you know, the group of Glasgow, they were 4 people. They were exactly like the group, the Swedish group ABBA. They were, well, not quite exactly, but there were 2 women married to 2 men, and the 4 of them formed this. I don't know if they were just the 4 of them, but they are known as the Glasgow School on aesthetics, and
the Glasgow Four.
The Glasgow Four, and the women were sisters. No, they were sisters.
Yeah, the women were sisters. Margaret and Frances, they were sisters.
Right. But again, it's very important, the presence of the woman. I mean, particularly in this case, and I'm glad that they are acknowledged as such. The Glasgow Four were actually 2 men and 2 women, 2 women and two men. I think you know, femininity and architecture is a theme that the feminists try to fight for, and sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't. But I think it's very important. I wonder how the world would have looked like if the men never built or didn't build much, and most of the buildings were done by women. Maybe it would have been a more interesting architecture. Once I was in a jury at Pratt Institute in New York. Lebia Sud invited me, and I mentioned in that so-called poem. And the students showed their works, and I liked a project done by a female student, and I liked the project done by a male student. But both projects had some problems, like any project, like mine too, of course. But I was asked to say something, and I said to her and to him, to the 2 students, I said, if you get married, together you'll do an unbelievable project, because you'll complement each other. When I said this, the whole class turned against me, and they said, you are sexist. How could you say something like this? What did I say so wrong? I only said that, you know, it was like in an yin and yang. They complemented each other. And I thought beautifully, just as Mackintosh complemented himself with his wife. It's something strange in the States, this obsession with sexism. And they're actually very sexist themselves. In fact, they are the sexists. As the mystics say, we do not see things as they are, we see things as we are. And this I should tell myself many times. Anyway, yes, nice. Glasgow School of Art. Finally, we arrived. Now, Juana, please take the microphone and begin.
No, I'm sorry, but I have to actually leave, because
No, you cannot do this to us. I mean,
I will say
after the Glasgow School of Art, Juana, please.
I will say a few words, but then I have to leave because my son is waiting for me.
No,
so
come on, you know. Why are mothers so attached to the sons? Why? It's a fatality.
No, it's not. He's small and he only has me. He doesn't have
No, please, I don't want to hear this. I know very well. that your son, I'm telling you, will suffer later on in life, because he will suffer like I suffer. I know what it means. This God, let him play or let him do something and tell us something about the building.
Okay, so again, these are just fragments of my memories because it was a long time ago. So
yes, 50 years ago, we know.
Maybe others in this conversation know more about the building. I can only tell you what remains of it for me was the feeling of it. So for me, one of the most interesting places that I've been, there was this corridor that was like outside of it was this corridor like a portico, which was white, that connected the two major hallways, I think, and it was all made of glass. And I liked how, like, you stepped in the inside is quite, at first it's quite it's also this interplay between light and dark places. So there are places which are white and are very and have an enormous height, and then there are places which are more dark and enclosed. And he designed a lot, like the handles on the doors. It was amazing. And he thought of details, like each classroom there was like this sort of pillar that was actually a vase, and they were supposed to put like roses on each of those vases, sorry, every day. And they actually I know that the outer side of the building decoration has a lot to do, it has a lot of symbols in it, like the symbols that they use. I don't remember exactly what symbols and how, but it has a lot of symbols in it. And when you enter the library, have any of you been to it? Because
I didn't.
The library was, because it's gone now, it's very square shaped. So it's very square. It was very squared, very symmetrical in shape, and it's all made of wood. Like this really, it was all made of wood. This really dark, rich. It was brown wood, and you were like, it was all the same material. This is what struck me, because like the floors were the same, and it made like this whole space very cohesive, and you felt very enclosed and like protected. And the fact that they were all the same materials made like sort of the decoration, the different layers of decorations on the chairs, on the shelves, on the windows, were like created this sort of staging effect. You know, like you are on a stage, and there's the first plan, a sort of layering and staged effects. So and I like that. And the corridors of the classrooms were like very, I remember thinking, wow, this is a corridor, because I think corridors are very important. I mean, we treat corridors as very like functional places, but Mackintosh put a pillar with a rose in them, so because they're passageways. They connect places, and a corridor should never be just like a space that leads you from A to B. It should be also a place where you can meet. And I think this also was the case in his school. I also liked the corridors. Okay, yeah, I know this is
very nice, Juana. You deserve now to go to say.
I'm sorry.
No, I personally regret you leave, because you have interesting things to say, and you said something very valuable. Maybe we'll make one day a meeting, we'll talk on Zoom about corridors. You said something very valuable.
Yeah.
I'm totally on your side on this. So please go say, what is the name of your son?
Leo.
Leo, please tell Leo that that he should be proud of his mother.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
We thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay. Now, you know what she said, that the room, the library, you remember, she said that it's not there any longer because it was a fire. And I think, I don't know, but I imagine that library was destroyed. And across the street is a building by Stephen Hall, and you will see it. What a chance for Stephen Hall to design a building right across the street from this famous building by Mackintosh, which I read that is considered one of the best 10 buildings in Great Britain, which is something, you know. It has many great buildings, but to be one of the first 10 is not, well, of course, these, you know, evaluations are as they are, partly subjective, but still says something. It's an important building. I think these images are after the fire, or I see some darkness which cannot be totally explained, I think, by the climate or you know, chemical reactions. Inside is also beautiful and very complex, you know, complex but still simple. That's what how I imagine. That's what I try to promote at Minku. Bring some books in the studios, you know, and the students see the covers of a few books, you know, just bring not many, but if you have 20, 30 books there, I think it will encourage the students to study, you know, it will provoke their interest, their curiosity. I think it's very important to have books near you, you know, on the you know, drafting board, on somewhere, you know, to have some books. Anyway, he quite a good architect. I mean, you could almost see where it's almost a church, like a small church, like interior. It's not. I don't believe it. This is the library that was ruined by the fire. If it was, and it is an immense loss. Let's hope they can rebuild it, but it won't be easy. There are some interesting things here. I mean, talking about how he, very interesting now, how he did these windows and bow windows in a way, you know, but they are creations, you know, they are very nice. I like them. I know this is not the most sophisticated, so-called professional description or criticism for saying it's very nice, but it's very nice. Okay, it's not. I'm not a theoretician. The plan is perfectly symmetrical, but the building, when you look at it, doesn't give you this, you know, rigid feeling at all. So you almost don't feel like saying this is the same building. Also, maybe because of the sloping road. I truly envy Stephen Hall for building across the street from this, and it's a narrow street. You'll see it at the back. This is after, I mean, or during the fire, and you see here Stephen Hall's building is here. Was a big fire. If that beautiful library was destroyed, what a loss. It seems everybody is contemplating it. They are not really working. I don't know what to think about this. They are working, or at least the machine is working. Sad. Very sad. Okay, now we'll see Stephen Hall's building across the street. right? Building. I think from now on I have to put in my announcements every day that Stephen Hall will attend if I want to bring a lot of people. He studied, you know, just even the trajectory of the sun on the sky, and even at the various times during the year. It was this is a serious building. Look, the you know, sketches by Stephen Hall. Thin bones and thick skin. Interesting.
Like a Gottfried Zemper's dialogue between the tectonic roof with the like a skeleton elements and the mound with the thick earth-like walls.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to say it again, but it uh, I really depresses me. You know, why is this lack of? I mean, I don't even know why I'm talking in English. Probably the five people here, one of them is me, so the other four people are probably Romanian. But it's something strange going on here in this country. Really, this lack of interest of the professors of the, you know, in how come Stephen Hall, who obviously is immensely busy, had time, you know, to show up, you know, when we celebrated Leviasus and even Wolf Prix. And I mean, yes, there were 2 or 3, is true, from Inku, but still, um, I don't understand. I really don't understand. That's why the students are not interested, because that's what they see in school. The professors are not interested. They are not interested either. They probably, the students say, well, why should I go? No professor goes, so why should I go? There is nothing to learn there, because obviously it's not important. I like these studies by Stephen Hall, you know, where he was with 57 degrees summer max, 11 degrees winter minimum. You know, I don't think we do these kind of things in the Romanian schools. You know, we don't care about the sun. Recycled white glass blocks. I mean, this is an architect, a thinking architect who thinks about connecting his building with the elements, with the outer world, with the sun, with the wind, with so on. Look, he writes here: drone light voids, sculpted light cuts, convex window, whatever. Well, someone, Minku told me, you know, we cannot do the kind of buildings these people do because they have slaves. That's what he told me. So they don't they have time to go to conferences and to attend Levi's birthday because they have slaves who do the work. What slaves? This is a watercolor done by Stephen Hall. And he runs a very big practice. And it's not about having time. He makes time. You know, this is not done by a slave. It's done by his own hand. This one as well. They have passion. They have, I don't know. They have passion. And we don't have it. And we don't have it, and we lead boring lives, and we don't build almost nothing. I mean, very few people build. A few do build, but they are few. Out of the 300 professors at Minku, how many build? I don't think too many. You know, maybe 20. I don't know, but what the others do? Why aren't they here? So we can talk, we exchange ideas, I can learn, they can learn, we can all learn. Why aren't they here? And not just here, but also, you know, in school and in auditorium. Something is definitely wrong. Look here, it's beautiful just to contemplate the dialogue between the two buildings, you know, and you can learn so much just to look at this section through these two buildings. Flexible studio volumes. Well, they even have a machine that's a suit. Nice. Very nice.
We also have them in the Arts University in Bucharest.
Good. I personally would bring a few also in the architecture school, but they would be considered outside of the realm of architecture, but they are not. And Godfrey Semper would agree, I think. Anyway, this is an art school, yes. But I think Stephen Hall did a good job here. Because he didn't try to mimic the other building. It has the identity of a modern building, a contemporary building, but it's not arrogant towards the other one. It's not submissive either. Here he is. Hello, Mr. Hall. Would you please tell us your secret? I mean, what is going on? You become a father at 75? I mean, besides building all over the world, you also make time to make children. He became a father for the first time at 72. And now at 75, he's a father again. Of course, he benefits from a very young wife, but still, it's amazing. I mean, how could he do it? All these things, you know. Mr. Hall, please tell us the secret. And he wrote me an email that he sent through his assistant, saying that he wants to come to Romania and visit Târgu Jiu, visit, you know, Brâncuș, what Brâncuș built there. Very nice. So at 75, he's still searching, still curious, still eager to learn new things. Beautiful. And still has time to make watercolors for his buildings. Now you see watercolors for flowers by Mackintosh, which are excellent. They are maybe a little bit decorative in the sense that you can almost tell they are the works of someone who also worked with a T-square and a rectangle. Of course, the flowers are not done with the T-square and the rectangle, but they are almost, you almost feel like they are engraved, or he's not a painter really, but it's still beautiful. That some of them are more beautiful than others, these flowers. I painted watercolors with flowers too. You'll see a few at the end. I don't even have them any longer. I'm not lying. I think I did around 1,000 watercolors with flowers when I was very depressed and miserable and almost having nothing to eat. I did watercolors with flowers on napkins, Scott family napkins. Yeah, I should go back to that because I like to do it. It's interesting also how he puts his name there near the flowers, you know, like you can tell he's an architect or a designer. You know, painters don't put it quite like that, but it's okay. I think it takes I mean, it's a special kind of architect who paints flowers, who draws flowers, and you can see his flowers are sometimes, you know, the details are you know, kind of complex. Like he did many. He obviously loved flowers, but it's hard not to like them or not to love them truly. I don't know. Did you ever hear about someone not loving flowers? Only a monster would not love flowers. And you will see now a few of mine that if I took the occasion, if you have 1 or 2 minutes, anyway, this is one. It's not, I mean, you could say it's not nearly really a flower. I used the Romanian watercolors, although I was living in the States, those Aquarela Pionier, which I loved, that small one that I used in my, you know, as a kid. I love those watercolors. The quality of the watercolors was excellent. These, first, I'm trying to excuse myself, but the, the pictures are not so good, and also I think they faded a little bit. Although I have to tell you, napkins are actually strong. Well, they are made for 30 jobs, no, to clean the tables and so on. I love those napkins. To do watercolors on napkins, I loved it. It is therapeutic work. Yeah, you can tell it's a napkin. And it's almost like Japanese paper, you know, it's very thin, but when you water it, the water runs through it immediately, and it's something magical almost happens. The napkin extends itself because of the water, and you just attach it to a piece of, I work with a piece of plastic, and I put the napkin on, and I water it, and then I can create the tension between the napkin and the plastic just by pressing a little bit at the corners, because the paper was very fragile, very thin, and it attached very well. This is, of course, after Van Gogh, but I did it on a napkin, on a Scott family napkin, but only a certain kind of napkin. I mean, not just that it was Scott family napkin, this was an American napkin, but a certain color, which was not any longer fashionable, so they didn't produce it. And I remember I searched for days to find that old that old napkin that I was searching for. This one I think I still have somewhere, but I lost many, hundreds I gave to some people and so on. Anyway, I finished.
Lovely drawings.
What, the watercolor?
Yes, the watercolors.
Thank you. I'll make one for you. As a present, if I still have a few of those napkins. In fact, I think even here in Bucharest. And now I have to purchase an Aquarela Pionier, and I'll do one. This was Andrei, no?
Sorry?
It was you, Andrei, no?
Yes, me. Thank you,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, because I don't see you because of. Anyway, I finished. I am too tired now to do Fujimoto, and you are probably tired too. You know, we did it. We celebrated Mackintosh and we celebrated Toyo. And tomorrow I invite you, if you are not bored and you have time, to Frank Lloyd Wright, which will be a marathon really, because I have a lot of material, and Wright is right or Wright is wrong. I mean, he was the bad boy of architecture, so there is much to show there. I have a lot, but I cannot show a lot. I have to choose some. And I also want to introduce you, if you don't know, Bruce Goff, because Bruce Goff was very interesting architect, and I read that he wanted to be employed by Frank Lloyd Wright, and Wright employed him, and after a few days he left, and I think he left with the same reasons Brancusi left Rodin, because he felt that grass cannot grow in the shadow of the big trees. But he became a very successful architect himself, very exotic, very interesting, and very different than Frank Lloyd Wright. So, and it will be his birthday, not tomorrow, but Monday. And from Monday, I have to tell you, today I was depressed when again I failed technically with this, with the access to the website, to Zoom. But what I plan to do, if I don't lose my optimism or my energy, from Monday, oh God, I want to do it. I really want to do it. But if people don't show up, then I'll become depressed, and I'll probably shut the shop. I'll close the shop. But what I want to do from Monday, and I already wrote a text, a short invitational text. The real marathon will start Monday. So every single day, 7 days a week, meetings at 6 p.m. And I'll show, I have what to show because I have hundreds of PowerPoint presentations. Maybe Monday I thought of talking in a comparative way, Le Corbusier and Frank Lloyd Wright, to compare the most important buildings by Wright with the most important buildings by Le Corbusier, since they were the paradigmatic figures of the 20th century architecture, and because Monday will be Frank Lloyd Wright's birthday, I thought of lunch talking like this, and then every single day 2 architects. But I want to do it, but I do hope a few people will show up. Otherwise, I'll get depressed. I'll send again emails, and it's very hard to send, very hard, but I'll try. It's very hard for me because I don't use MailChimp, or how it is called. I don't use a newsletter. So I send them manually to groups of people. And after 200 or 3, Yahoo shuts down freezes my account. And then I have to send from a different account. Anyway, Klaus, I want to thank you. I still talk in English, but probably we are only Romanians here. I don't know.
Yeah, but we're recording, so it's all right. This one is in English.
Yeah. So you see that it's actually recorded. I even forgot. So it is recording.
Yes, in the corner, in the top right corner.
Well, it doesn't matter anyway. Nobody will look at the recording. I don't even know why.
Maybe for you and for future, who knows? I mean, it's interesting because we are talking of these subjects, and sometimes sharing our knowledge of these things or questioning things and so on. Sometimes new idea can happen.
I totally agree. Yes, I totally agree, and I think your interventions are beautiful. I mean, they really. I mean, we have to do something about this because our dialogue, with its imperfections and whatever, but with its spontaneity, with memories, with technical knowledge, with all these things, make a presentation richer than this sort of dialogue doesn't really take place in an auditorium so easily. Maybe in a small room, yes, but in a big auditorium where you have the speaker with the microphone and the others are dispersed in the big room, no. But here on Zoom, it does work, and I think I think there is potential in this, but at the beginning I was very depressed because of my inability to fix the technical problem. Fortunately, Andrei looked for a way to redeem the deleted. I deleted exactly the good one. I mean, this is so typical of me. I always do this. I sabotage myself without knowing, but I mean, it's unbelievable. I delete exactly the good one and I keep the wrong one. Anyway, sper că nu v-am plictisit. I hope you are not bored. You are not too bored.
No, thank you for the presentation. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I actually thought of talking about Fujimoto and Ishigami, but I'm too tired now. We'll talk about them in some other day, and I'll try to convince the Romanian architect who works for Fujimoto to come to attend, because I'm sure she has interesting things to say, and we can learn. We can learn.
Maybe even Fujimoto.
Maybe even Fujimoto, indeed. Okay, so unless you want to say something, I mean, I am, lonely man. I can stay until midnight, but
No, we have to rest also. So, but
Okay.
we'll meet each other tomorrow. So
okay, thank you very much. So we'll see each other tomorrow.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I
Thank
hope
you.
tomorrow I will not make again the same mistake. It's unbelievable.
Step by step, it's a process. So
It is, but I lose clients like this because if people come and they see they cannot get in, and this happens several times, they say to hell.
practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I guess. Mulțumesc, Radu, de încurajare. Bine, ne vedem mâine.
Okay,
Yes,
noapte bună.
thank you for the
Noapte bună,
presentation.
la revedere.
Have a good
Noapte
night.
Revedere.